Okay, let's dive into this one. Picture this. It's late at night, April 1st, 2023. A huge bulk carrier, the MV Hellasship, is getting close to the port of Gijón in Spain. They're preparing for something incredibly routine, taking a pilot aboard. Yeah, something they do all the time. But this time, it ended in tragedy. The bosun, the petty officer in charge of the deck crew, he fell overboard while setting up the ladder, and he didn't survive. So today, we're going deep into the official investigation report from Liberia's Maritime Authority. Now, these reports aren't about pointing fingers legally, but finding out why it happened. What you're going to hear is, well, it wasn't just a freak wave. It was a whole chain of failures, procedures ignored, safety gear that wasn't up to scratch. It all lined up to create this disaster.
That's really the heart of it. This case is a stark example of how safety systems can break down layer by layer. Just for context, the Hellasship, it's a massive ship, over 180,000 deadweight tons, built in 2012, Liberian-flagged. And pilot boarding, especially with combination ladders, it's always considered high risk. You've got crew working right over the side, exposed.
Right on the edge, exactly. Which is why the rule book is so strict for these jobs. You just can't cut corners when you're working that close to the water. The risks multiply instantly. Okay, so let's walk through the timeline, set the scene. It's late, about 10 to 10 at night, 21:50 local time. The master tells the bosun experienced guy, 48 years old, Filipino, and 3 ordinary seamen, OSs, to get the ladders ready on the starboard side. And the conditions. This is key. The ship is still moving, doing 7 to 8 knots. And there's a big swell coming from the northwest, waves around 3 to 4 meters high.
Which is significant. 3 to 4 meters is a serious sea state.
Hold on, 7 to 8 knots while rigging ladders in a 3 to 4 meter swell. That speed alone feels wrong. Wouldn't that make things way more dangerous, just the ship's movement through the water?
Oh, absolutely. It's aggressive, and as the report highlights, really unsafe. Normally, you'd slow right down, try to create a lee side, shelter the ladder from the wind and waves. Going that fast means the ship itself is churning up the water, making the wave impacts much worse on that side. So the bosun, he goes down onto the lower platform of the accommodation ladder, probably to check its position, give instructions, and that's when it happened, around 22:13. A big wave hits the platform. The investigation showed the waves were hitting almost square on, perpendicular to the side, no shelter at all, swept him straight into the sea.
Just gone. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Instantly. Okay, but one of the OSs, OS3, he reacted fast, radioed the bridge immediately. Man overboard, alarm sounds, procedures kick in.
Yes, the initial onboard alert seems to have been prompt.
But now they're in a race against time and the elements. And this is where we hit the next major problem, the rescue itself. So the master does the right things, initially starts a Williamson turn to backtrack, crew throws life buoys, the ones with lights and smoke signals. They mark the spot.
Standard MOB procedure, yes.
But then comes this critical radio call to the Gijón Rescue Coordination Center, the MRCC. The master has to report that because of the rough weather. The Hellasship cannot launch its own rescue boat.
And that is a massive red flag right there.
Isn't it? If the weather is too bad to launch your own rescue boat, how could it possibly have been safe enough to have crew working over the side on a ladder just minutes before?
Exactly. It completely undermines the decision to even start the ladder rigging. The ship's own immediate rescue capability, that fast response boat, was effectively useless because of the sea conditions they chose to work in.
So the crew member is in the water,
Right.
And the ship's primary tool to get him back quickly is sidelined by the very conditions they were operating in.
Correct. The responsibility then falls entirely on external help. MRCC Gijón coordinates everything, sending a helicopter, rescue boats, even a fishing vessel join the search.
And help did arrive relatively quickly. The helicopter was there by 22:31, so less than 20 minutes later. But finding someone in the dark, in those waves.
It's incredibly difficult. The search went on all night.
Yeah, it wasn't until nearly 9 the next morning, 08:45 on April 2nd, that the MRCC told the ship they'd found him. A rescue vessel spotted the body, and the helicopter recovered him.
The autopsy later confirmed drowning. And just to be clear, the report states all crew involved tested negative for drugs and alcohol. This wasn't about impairment. This was about procedures, supervision, equipment, a systemic failure.
Okay, so let's pivot from the what happened to the why. The wave was the immediate cause, sure, but the investigation digs much deeper. It points to a complete collapse of the safety barriers that should have prevented this. Failure point number 1 seems to be the absolute basics, planning and paperwork, the foundation of any safe operation.
Right. Totally ignored. The report is very clear. No permit to work was issued for rigging the ladder. No formal risk assessment was done beforehand.
Wait, so they just skipped it for a job like this?
Apparently so. which directly violated their own company's safety management system, specifically procedures VSAF 05 and VSRK 04D. These are the rules designed to make you stop, think, identify hazards, and control them before you start work.
And on top of skipping the formal assessment, they didn't even have a quick pre-task safety huddle, a toolbox talk.
No mention of one being conducted. So they went into a high-risk job, working over the side, ship moving, rough seas, with zero formal discussion about the specific dangers of that moment.
That lack of planning just sets the stage for everything else, doesn't it? Which brings us to failure point 2, supervision and actually following the rules out on deck.
And this is a huge one. Not only were the conditions objectively unsafe for working over the side, which likely violated company policy, but the supervision was completely absent. No officer was present at the location while they were rigging the ladder. No chief officer, no second or third mate, nobody in a position of direct supervisory responsibility.
Is that just a company rule or something more?
Oh, it's much more. It's a direct violation of SOLAS, the International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea. Chapter 5, Regulation 23, Section 2.2, specifically requires a responsible officer to supervise the rigging and operation of pilot transfer arrangements. That officer is meant to be the safety backstop, the person empowered to say, stop, this isn't safe, and they simply weren't there.
Wow. Okay, so no planning, no supervision mandated by international law. What about the physical safety measures? The gear. This is failure point 3.
Yeah, and this is perhaps the most tangible failure. First, basic physical protection. The bosun was working on that platform without a safety harness or lifeline attached.
Seriously? Working over the side, feet above the water, in that swell with no fall protection?
Correct. If he'd been clipped on, a wave might have knocked him about, gotten him soaked, but it shouldn't have swept him away. He would or should have been recoverable back onto the ladder or deck.
Unbelievable.
And then there's the life jacket. This is critical. The report makes a specific, damning point. The life jackets worn by the bosun and the OSs rigging the ladder were not SOLAS-approved.
Not SOLAS-approved. What does that actually mean in practical terms? Is it just a label or?
No, it's fundamental. A non-SOLAS life jacket hasn't met the rigorous international standards for performance. We're talking about things like buoyancy, how well it keeps you afloat, especially if unconscious, visibility, the color, the reflective tape, maybe even a light. Things essential for rescuers to spot you, particularly at night in rough water, and duration, how long it can reliably perform in harsh conditions.
So the very piece of equipment designed to keep him alive and visible in the water was substandard. It potentially reduced his chances of being found and surviving even before the rescue delay.
Absolutely. It dramatically compromises survival time and detectability. Using non-SOLAS life jackets for this kind of work is, well, it's unthinkable on a regulated commercial vessel. It points to a major failure in supply, inspection, or both.
That is staggering.
And there's one more cultural piece here, the investigators noted. Despite all these obvious hazards, the ship's speed, the waves, no harness, no officer, not one crew member exercised their stop work authority.
Right. Any crew member has to halt an unsafe job.
Exactly. The fact that nobody felt able or perhaps empowered enough to say, hold on, this is too dangerous, tells you something about the safety culture on board. It suggests that getting the job done, maybe quickly, took priority over fundamental safety, even when lives were clearly at risk.
Okay, so let's pull it all together. The report's conclusion isn't about a single freak wave. It's about a cascade of failures.
Yeah.
The bosun fell because of the wave hitting the platform, yes. But that fall became fatal because they were working in unsafe conditions with no proper risk assessment, no legally required officer supervision, no safety harness, and crucially, wearing life-saving gear that wasn't up to international standards. It was the perfect storm, created by neglecting the rules.
Precisely. And based on this, the Liberian authorities make some strong recommendations to prevent this happening again. They focused on reinforcing those broken barriers. First, procedures. Make permits to work and real-time risk assessments absolutely mandatory for hazardous jobs like this. No more skipping the paperwork. It has to be done properly.
Makes sense.
Second, operational limits. Stop rigging ladders when the ship is underway in bad weather, and force officers to actively think about ship heading and speed to protect the crew on deck from waves. If you can't make it safe, you don't do it. Period.
Common sense, really. And the gear.
Absolutely critical. Ensure all life-saving gear, especially life jackets used for working over the side, are SOLAS compliant. They need regular checks, and anything substandard gets replaced immediately. This is non-negotiable.
And finally, the people, the culture.
Training and accountability. Really push the use of stop work authority, make it clear there are no penalties for speaking up about safety, and hold officers accountable for being present and actively supervising these high-risk tasks. That SOLAS rule exists for a reason.
So for anyone listening, especially if you work in maritime or any industry with high-risk tasks, this report is a brutal lesson. Routine jobs, like setting up a pilot ladder, can become deadly traps when basic safety steps, a permit to work, and officer watching over things are ignored. Pile non-compliant safety gear on top of that, and tragedy becomes almost inevitable.
And think about this. We learned the ship couldn't even launch its own rescue boat because the weather was too rough weather they chose to work in, and the bosun was wearing a life jacket that likely wouldn't perform to standard, reducing his survival window anyway. It really makes you wonder, when you start cutting corners, how many safety nets do you remove before there's nothing left? How many layers of redundancy disappear before a fall becomes fatal? And maybe more personally, who's checking the gear that your life might depend on?